Hey guys, this is Dragonfly again. Welcome to our Halo 5 Force tutorial, episode 4. And this time we're going to go ahead and discuss a very important topic when it comes to scripting in Halo 5 Forge, and that would be messing around with labels. So, what is a label? During episode 3, we touched a little bit about what a label does. It basically assigns a role to a specific object. However, there are also miscellaneous labels that you can use in order to manipulate objects in different ways. And these would be the user labels. So users are not tied to any specific game type. They can be used in every game type in custom games available, and they are basically used to classify an object. And this is actually a very powerful tool because it allows us to manipulate objects in different ways and also allow other objects to manipulate specific objects but not others. Now, in this case, we're going to go ahead and um, create a tutorial on how to destroy certain objects but not others. So we're going to use this mongoose, which is going to have labeled user alpha, and this one is going to have labeled user bravo. This is very simple. So basically, you would go to the object properties and to the labels, and you would assign that label there. Now this switch will be responsible for destroying an alpha, an object with the user alpha label applied to it. So let's go ahead and create a script for it and create the interacted event once again. In this case, we're gonna go ahead and go down the list until we reach damage ratio. Now, damage ratio, what it does is that it applies a certain amount of damage in terms of a percentage, not an absolute amount, and it applies damage to a given object. So its default setting is this object. So the switch would give itself 10% damage to its health, and that's basically how it works. It's pretty useful for causing objects to self-destruct when they lose a specific amount of health, for example, but or when there's a specific event to be triggered. But we're gonna go ahead and make this a simple version of damage ratio. And what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna go back to our parameters, and in this case, we're going to uh, assign, make it pick a label. So what we're doing here is that we are causing this terminal to go ahead and apply a specific amount of damage to an object that carries the label user alpha. Now, we do want to be a little bit more specific about this in most of the cases, but yeah, this is a very, very powerful tool. So let's go ahead and apply 50% damage to its health. So 50% of its health is gonna be gone, and it's gonna be doing that once we interact with that. So, boom. See now the mongoose immediately lost half its health, and this mongoose was left alone because it does not have label alpha assigned to it, has label bravo assigned to it. So, what if we want to be a little bit more specific as to which objects? What if we want to prioritize certain objects over others that have the same label, right? So let's say I just duplicated these objects. They have the exact same traits, and so they are all labeled alpha, while this one is still labeled bravo. So this one has alpha on it, right? Let's go back to our terminal and mess around with the parameters for a bit. So we go back to interactive. Instead of damage ratio, we're gonna give it 100% damage to destroy it instantly. And what we're gonna go ahead and do is, well, before I even get there, I do want to go ahead and take care of some things here. So let me go ahead and respawn after 1 second. Respawn 1 second after, it's been destroyed, so that way actually. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to this. Let's just forget about that. Now, let's go ahead and prioritize some things. Now, if we were to press it now with the current parameters, every single object that has user alpha assigned to it would be destroyed instantly. We might not want that all the time. So in this case, what we're gonna go ahead and do instead is that we're gonna go ahead and pick the nearest object that has the user alpha label assigned to it. So we're gonna pick the nearest one. We're not gonna pick the nearest 2, nearest 3, just the nearest one for now. And the closest mongoose with label user alpha should be destroyed. There we go. All right, so that's one down. Let's try again. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get this thing to wait for it to despawn. There we go. Let's pick the next one. Okay, second one's down. Perfect. Okay. Now let's wait for that to despawn. And we're gonna pick our last one. And it effectively destroyed that one as well. So that's pretty much how you can mess around with labels and prioritize it in different ways. So let's go ahead and mess around with the parameters a little bit more now that we're having a little bit of fun. We're gonna go ahead and press the U key, which shows the map options for the entire map. And we're gonna go all the way to the bottom. We're gonna put reset map state. Now most of the objects should respawn. When you click this, sometimes they don't. It's a little bit buggy. But in this case, it did. 2 of the 3 monsters came back, so that's good. Now let's go ahead and go back to our scripting. And this time, instead of picking the nearest one, we're gonna go ahead and pick. We're gonna pick one at random. Random one. Now you can actually have up to 64 random objects, picked in terms of parameters, but we're gonna go ahead and pick random one. And now it's gonna destroy all the label alpha objects at random. That's one. That's another one. There we go. What's wrong with this one? Oh, okay. The other objects didn't finish the spawning. That's why it didn't destroy it. Now we can destroy it. Perfect. Okay. So now let's go ahead and see what else we can do with these labels and how we can manipulate objects to respond a certain way. Now, we're gonna go ahead and do something a little bit more interesting. What we're gonna go ahead and do is that we're gonna pick a different label, no, a different action altogether. And we're gonna pick the move offset. So now we're gonna pay closer attention to this. First, we're gonna determine which object gets to be moved. It doesn't have to be this terminal. So we're gonna go ahead and put label, but instead of picking label alpha, we're gonna pick label bravo. There we go. Okay. And now let's go ahead and duplicate a few of them to, do that. All right. Back to label bravo. So label bravo, right? And we're gonna go ahead, for simplicity's sake, pick the nearest one. And we're gonna make it move towards a specific object. In this case, we're gonna pick the player. But we do need to be a little bit careful when we're picking players for situations like these, because we don't want to pick dead players. That can actually distract the program from, operating properly. So basically, we picked which object we're going to move, which is any object that has label bravo. It's the closest label bravo object. We're gonna make it move towards a player. In this case, we're gonna provide a more realistic example, so we're gonna pick the nearest player. And once I press this button, it's going to move the player. However, you can actually kill the player with these specific conditions because it's not specifying which position around the player. It's just gonna go directly at the player within 1 second, and we don't want that. So in this case, we're gonna pick the player's position. So it's gonna move towards the player, but it's gonna be 16 units on top of the player. And we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that in 3 seconds on its global axis. I like to use global axis a lot because, the if it were to move on its individual orientation, it might not work properly. So I always like to play it safe and pick global axis movement. So 3 seconds, right? Now we're gonna go ahead and transport a mongoose towards the player in 3 seconds. See? Boom. Perfect. Okay. Now we're gonna be a little bit more stylish about this. So let's go ahead. Oh, whoops. Let's go ahead and make it move 8 spaces to the player's right hand side, or left hand side in this case. So now it's positive right next to you. Cool. That's great. So that's an example of how some objects can manipulate other objects and prioritize some objects over others through the use of labels. This can get a little bit tricky and complicated, but once you learn how to use it, it can be like extremely useful to use. So I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot from it. So thank you very much and have a good day.